I would like to invite now Amnon Bar-Or and Tal Gazit. Their lecture is titled Erich Mendelsohn, Heritage and Private Ownership, Conservation and Public Exposure of OUV in Jerusalem. Amnon and Tal are both at the Bar-Or Gazit Architect's office. Professor Architect Amnon Bar-Or is the general manager and owner, and he established the office in 1990 and has worked on very large conservation projects here in Israel, including the old city of Tzfat and the restoration and the excavations of the Roman Byzantine city in Bet Sha'an. Since 1990, the office has been concentrating on projects in Tel Aviv. Tal Gazit, his partner, is a graduate of the Faculty of Architecture and Town Planning at the Haifa and Technion and joined the office in 2009. He's associate partner since 2012 and partner since 2016. So thank you very much, please.
Hello, everybody. As a conservation architect, our talk today comes from this point of view. We are not historians, but we deal with conservation, and that's why we are very interested in this lecture. We've been working and documenting and planning on both buildings in the past. We want to cherish their values and acknowledgement and their importance. Thanks a lot for the organizer of the conference, the Sarah and Avi Aronson in the Technion Heritage Center, and we'll start. In Jerusalem, Mendelsohn designed several projects, as we all know: the Hadassah Hospital, the Shoken Library, the residence of Zalman Shoken, and the Anglo-Palestine Bank. The last two are privately owned today, and that's what is interesting us, because there are some dangerous moments of initiatives about those two buildings. Mendelsohn left a mark on the DNA of Jewish architecture, and his legacy stays with us today. Our office has worked on the two buildings planned by Mendelsohn in Jerusalem in collaboration with architects Yaron Kupperstock and Shaya Roth. We want to thank them in this opportunity. The work consisted documenting and planning of the two privately owned buildings: residence of Zalman Shoken, which was built in Rehavia between 1934 and 1936, and the Anglo-Palestine Bank on Jaffa Street between 1937 and 1939. Both buildings have a significant, outstanding universal values, according to us, and we will relate to it later. Now, Tal.
Mendelsohn was commissioned by the Shoken family to plan the family residence and library in Jerusalem. The villa was built on 6 plots of land in Rehavia neighborhood. The main area was devoted to the gardens surrounding the villa, which are part of the OUV of the sites. The villa, like I said, is surrounded by an upper front garden and a rare terraced garden facing towards the south, enabling vast views towards the Judean mountains and the Dead Sea. The house was meant to be as a filter between the two gardens and maybe between the urban life of the growing city and the natural landscape surrounding it. As shown in the historical plans, the original main structure was composed of two partially overlapping rectangles that offset from one another. The longer rectangle served as the main residence wing, and the perpendicular shorter one was the services area. Here we can see both the library and the villa. Between them, Agion House, today Israeli Prime Minister's official residence. The villa during its construction. These pictures show the front and back facades. We can see the openings that were designed as a filter, the terraces and the famous round balcony which can be seen in other projects, of course, of Mendelsohn. A view to Judean mountains and the social life of Shokin family. Other exterior details of the front facade and the pool planned to be exposed to the south sun. Interior details were designed carefully and typically by Mendelsohn himself as part of the planning as a whole. We can see the building as a filter again, actually no walls dividing between in and out, but openings. Dining room details and art, and current situation of the building today. Due to political changes in the 40s of the previous century, Shokin leaves Jerusalem, and later on the State of Israel buys the property for the music academy named after its donator, Samuel Rubin. The academy needed more areas for its activity, adding 900 square meters to the building, planned mostly by known architect Joseph Klarwein, who planned also the building of Israeli parliament, the Knesset. In red we see the 50s additions, and in blue the 70s additions. The additions are showed in plan here and also in section in these drawings. We see the changes of the facades changed completely until one cannot even recognize the original facades and volumes. We see this also in pictures from Smolansky Street, the main street, and also a view of current situation from the back. Here we can see another view of the building today. During the academy activity, the Israeli state also sold most of the back garden area, and 2 modern buildings were built on them, hiding the exact view that the villa was planned to face to. Unfortunately, this important value is lost forever. As a summary for this chapter, and according to our documentation, we can say that the villa today represents several values for preservation. Design in dialogue with the local landscape. The building is a filter, like we said, between the urban landscape and nature. Use of modern architecture principles and techniques, and adaptation of modern architecture to the local climate. Influenced by local Palestinian architecture, creating relationship between the building, the gardens, and the view, and of course, cladding with Jerusalem local stone. Our second study case is the Anglo-Palestine Bank building built between 1937 and 1939 and kept its original main volumes while its inner spaces value were damaged. The building is designed as 2 volumes bridging the topographic differences between Jaffa Street and Koresh Street. The high-rise representative building facing towards Jaffa Street, and the lower and smaller part faces Koresh Street, former Storrs Street. Adapt itself to the British planning principle of height to street width ratio. The building was considered Jerusalem's first skyscraper, shown in these pictures, emphasizing the different facades and volumes to its surroundings. As a representative bank building on the main street, details were planned carefully by Mendelsohn with the help of known artist Ze'ev Rabban, combining artistic motifs such as lions on the main entrance door, the bronze doors, referring to the Lion's Gate, and other decorative elements which were considered as an architectural sin by Adolf Loos. More details on the outside. The building has no yard, and the ground floor was planned as the main hall, having a glass ceiling bringing natural light to the double floor public hall. The interior details also planned by Mendelsohn. Plans and sections show the main hall, and above all are the offices floor. 5 typical offices floor were built on top of the main hall. Current state shows the building has got no significant late changes. Outside details kept in a quite reasonable shape. The original wall maps in the main hall kept in their original shape and will be part of future conservation, showing the map of the land of Israel and the Mediterranean Sea as a symbol of the combination between the universal and the local. Current state of the interior needs careful preservation, no more words needed. As a summary for the chapter, we can say that the building today represents several values for preservation. Located and integrated on Jaffa Street, the main business street of modern Western Jerusalem, among other monumental buildings. Symbolic value for the Anglo-Palestine Bank and the Zionist movement. Attention to the topography, a bridge between Jaffa and Corey Street. Design motifs that refer to historical Jerusalem, a combination between modern architecture and traditional architecture. Art and design details made by Shlomo Ries and Zeev Rabban from the Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design. We all know OUV UNESCO definition. We can summarize or suggest our OUV for the 2 specific sites. Villa Shoken is an example of an outstanding encounter between modern architecture and the traditional architecture of the Middle East, with special attention to the local landscape of Jerusalem at that time. The Anglo-Palestine Bank building reflects the manner of attention Erich Mendelsohn put in his design and the architectural style developed by him. A style based on the principles of modern architecture that integrate motifs from traditional Palestine characteristics. Both Villa Shoken and the Anglo-Palestine Bank are examples of a combination between modern Western architecture and local Middle Eastern characteristics. As opposed to yesterday somewhat pessimism regarding preservation and announcement of Villa Shoken, we believe that both sites can be listed as a World Heritage Sites and even expose its values to the public. So how will we expose Mendelssohn's OUV to the public? We use restore, reduce, and reclaim. Restore. The restore part of our lecture means conserving the buildings at the highest possible way, protecting the building values by adopting a conservative preservation approach. The conservative approach deals with the original monument, emphasizing the architect's original planning and intentions, keeping and restoring the original structure and materials, of course. The main changes has been made regarding Villa Shoken. 1, the lower garden has been bought and replaced by modern new buildings. 2, the site has got serious changes since another 900 meters, like we said, were added by the planning of Klarwein, changing the main facade completely and will be removed in any future conservation. In this scheme, we see the villa at its best. The situation of Jaffa 21, the Anglo-Palestine Bank, is different since no serious additions or changes have been made to the building, and also no additions are allowed since no extra building rights left unbuilt, as opposed to Villa Shoken. And that's why we use the reduce mechanism. We suggest a practical approach of using the mechanism of transferring of building rights, giving the private owner an incentive to preserve the historic buildings without additions and build a new structure elsewhere while getting more building rights as a compensation. The mechanism is implemented successfully and on a daily basis in Tel Aviv, having it within the urban conservation city or a master plan, Also, our office has planned the Herzliya Conservation Master Plan with the same and even an improved building rights transferring mechanism, allowing a proportional and rather conservative architectural solution for every historic site. Any building, as we know, any building rights in a specific plot derives from its master. In this series of villa Shoken master plans, we see the reduce of the site values along the years. Part of it was sold and 2 buildings have been built instead. According to current master plan, high-rise building is allowed on top of the monument. For the 2 study cases, we offer to transfer any current and future building rights to another lot, adding extra building rights as an incentive. To demonstrate this approach, we use a model that can be suited to each one of the cases. The model of TBR, transfer of building rights, consists 3 components. We will demonstrate it regarding Villa Shoken, since this site contains a complex situation of late additions that needed to be removed and also an amount of building rights that are not yet built. The first component is preserving the original monument itself, containing a certain build area plus the areas of late addition needed to be removed or actually demolished after being documented carefully. Yes. The second component is defining the pool of building rights and incentives, which are actually extra meters that are given as a bonus and will be transferred to another lot. The third component is the actual transferring of building rights through a new master plan. In the end, this is a calculation that has to be economically viable. As a conclusion for this chapter, in this diagram, we show that in order to preserve the monument without additions, we need a significant amount of incentives. The incentive includes also a bonus for exposing part of the site to the public, not an obvious idea. In case of private property.
Just to give a small example for our German guests who probably know this 2 twin villas in Kerfeld by Miss van der Rohe that were privately owned and became cultural institutes and museum of art. We planned for Shoken Villa the same attitude, a visualization of restored villa, with part of it would be open to the public, and the rest of it would remain private, of course, with use of museum or cultural center or learning center or some education next to the private users of the villa. In the bank, we offer the same thing before the main hall of the bank, where all the rest of the building is intended to be hotel. So combining those 2 private and public ownership and use might be a very good solution for both buildings that are owned by private people today. But if we consider them as UNESCO World Heritage Site, of course we need some management plan. I won't enter into the details of the management plan, but we do offer some details by using this management plan or offer of the management plan. We really recognize the problems of these privately owned buildings and at the same time used by the public. But there are some conclusions that we are afraid that are not so optimistic, because the current master plans in Jerusalem do give a very high very high percentage of new buildings on top of those buildings. And even though they are listed, but as we know, Jerusalem does not have a conservation plan, and everything can be changed. And I think that by proposing them to be a World Heritage Site, we can protect them against the initiatives of the in the Jerusalem municipality. Thank you very much.